Good morning, everybody, and Matthew.
Hey, good morning,
Um,
Teepa.
yeah. So Matthew, last week or the week before, I participate in many professional organizations, and one of the organizations is dedicated to supporting medical directors and medical providers in long-term care. And last week, someone posted up, what are we supposed to do if someone who has, well, actually, a demented patient, a patient who has dementia, which we find difficult to say it that way, but it was actually, a demented patient becomes belligerent and problematic at 2 a.m. And the reality is, you're not allowed now. There are new guidelines. You may not give a psychotropic medication without advising and consulting and talking with the family of the individual. So, what are we supposed to do? Try to do that at 2 a.m.? It was there was obvious to me a lot of distress around this concept of feeling constrained that they couldn't do what automatically they felt they needed to do at 2 a.m. when we have someone living with dementia who is not wanting to be where they are, having done what is being asked to be done, not tolerating care, not tolerating the people, not tolerating the place, and letting everybody know that they did not want to be there and they did not like, and they were quote unquote belligerent. In other words, I'm stating my case quite clearly. And to the best of my knowledge, I have not been incarcerated. I have not committed crime. I have a right to not be here if I don't want to be here. I mean, I've never stayed in a hotel where I was forced to stay in a hotel. If I didn't like the hotel and I decided I was leaving, I was allowed to leave. I've never been at a conference that if I decided I wanted to leave the conference, I'm leaving. Um, I've been in work situations where I had to feel like I had to stay until the end, but there's also an element of professional responsibility there. So, Matthew, I'm going to set you up there. So, that's sort of what triggered for me, sort of, and it was a trigger. I will be quite open about it, that the automatic reflexive pattern in response is to say, well, you could get up with the family at admission and say, if there's an emergency in the middle of the night, we will want to be able to use these. So we'll get them on board. Now, here's the tricky part. Please understand, you are not allowed to recommend these meds PRN. So I'm not sure how they're going to work around that because that sounds like a PRN. That sounds like a judgment call. Need these emergently in this situation. And that's often what happens to people living with dementia when they go to the hospital because when they call EMS and EMS comes in and it escalates and it escalates and it escalates. So, Matthew, what do you think my response to this whole thing is?
Yeah, I'm feeling, Teepa, your response to this was, whoa, whoa, pause, pause. We need to figure out something else because it sounds like there are things happening here that we need to get curious about.
No, it sounds like there's something going on here, and it's called blame. It's blaming the
Yes. Oh, man.
person living with dementia for the incident. And what I would say is the reason the incident is occurring 90+% of the time is that we have not prepared staff, we have not prepared the environment, we have not really problem solved what should we think about doing? What's our strategy? What's a care plan? We have someone for whom this is not their home and they've woken up in the middle of the night. What could be causing their desire, intense desire, to not be with us, not do what we want, not be in this place? You are right, Matthew, have to get incredibly curious. But what I would say is that human beings are not going to be incredibly curious at that point if they haven't been trained and skilled in helping someone who's living with the brain changes of dementia in an unfamiliar environment with unfamiliar people around them, doing maybe unfamiliar things when they might also have an unmet need that they are having difficulty expressing, or the need that they have we find unacceptable. So the captain of the ship is off the ship, and yet they're worried about how they're going to give orders in advance or at the time to get this situation, quote unquote, under control. And so I don't think we're turning to the right people. We're not actually saying to nursing staff, how many folks do you have on staff right now? Can one person be dedicated right now? Who's the best person? In other words, who else is not trained? Do I think, Matthew, for this situation? Who do I not believe is trained for this situation?
I think the folks who are in the positions that are hiring.
Oh, yeah. What did you say, Matthew? I'm sorry, I got distressed.
The folks who are hiring, the folks who are in the positions that are bringing people in or creating these procedures as folks.
I would say the medical providers, Matthew. I don't think the medical providers are trained to respond to crises in anything other than what med should I give? What med should be given?
So looking at the direct boots on the ground, people up front, the ones who are providing the care, not being provided the right support, not being provided the education. And how do we get that started? Like, how do we start to get those things in place?
How do we acknowledge this is not an acceptable there's a reason for an F tag. The F tag is the psychotropic medications could have significant and serious life impact on someone. And so, yeah, there should be a lot done before we get to that place. And there is zero evidence being presented that the staff had done a number of things by the time. And why was someone viewed as, and I love the language, belligerent?
Belligerent.
Because it says, I'm staying in my position. And so I'm concerned that we're not preparing leaders of any sort to do what is being asked of them. And then we're blaming, once again, the person living with dementia for misbehaving rather than acknowledging they could use some different support than what they're getting. And at the price tag we're charging, perhaps we should have that skill in place before we start.
So really thinking about this, Teepa, the idea of everybody who's involved in this could have something new awareness, new training, new whatever to help them figure these pieces out versus just going back to, I want to call it old hat. They want to go back to the old thing that this is what we've always done. This is how we've done it. How can we figure out a way to get
how can we get the families okay with it?
Get the okay.
And it's like, families, don't be okay with it. Ask questions, be curious. I get it. I mean, I've been there at 2 a.m. and I have figured out how to de-escalate situations at 2 a.m. I am very aware 2 a.m. is a tough time to get your brain to work. But if you're not getting your brain to work at 2 a.m., who else's brain is not working at 2 a.m.? And who's the most vulnerable? And it's our frontline staff and our people living with dementia and our family members who are getting woken up and asked to make a quick decision. So I think it's time to do a big pause here and say, hang on, when are we going to start requiring training on the skills that are needed to de-escalate situations to be required before we lock doors, have staff on the other side of the doors, and bring people into that situation who are living with complicated changes in their brain and in their bodies? When is it going to start to be better? Only when we demand it. Only when we say no more. No, there's no way around that F tag. You need to do your homework and get people trained. You need to build skill for everyone involved. So there you go. Adamant Monday. Boy, oh boy. I've got to say, unless we hold hard to our belief that people living with dementia need to not be treated as though they are irrational, erratic beings that can't at all have an interaction that has some support to it, and instead are viewed as dangerous and needing to be sedated. We've got a problem, Houston. And we've got to start recognizing no more, no more. We're getting back into old bad habits. And we've got to break the habit before it becomes a common practice once again. All right, everyone. It's a tough Monday, but if we don't talk about these things, we don't bring them up, we don't offer alternatives, we're part of the problem. And there are alternatives. And there are ways to be that change how the other person believes and feels and gets their needs met. Till next time, take care of yourself, take care with your peer. And if you could use some support, if you are feeling challenged, please connect with us, contact us. We will see what we can do to support you in your effort to bring change to the community or the situation or the family or the whatever you find yourself in. Till next time. Bye all.
Teepa. Bye, everybody.